Scott McNair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us this morning. This is the Overruled Podcast brought to you by the Scott McNair Law Firm. This is one of your co-hosts, David McNair, along with Brad Scott, my law partner. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Just still dealing with this heat.
I wish our office manager would stop buying Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches because they are just irresistible and a waste of the hour of pain that I suffered in the gym this morning.
In our defense, we split one.
We did. We split one.
I feel much better about it. We'll split another one when we get out of here.
Half the calories. When you're starting with 900 calories and you divide it in half, it's not really a good ending to begin with. But
Probably not.
We'll keep telling ourselves that.
Yes.
All right, we got two great topics this morning for you all. And the first one I'm going to dive right into. You know, Brad, it's no secret that I am a huge fan of Shark Tank. If you walked in my house, I think that show is on a perpetual spool going over and over and over again. And I think I love the show so much because it is things that I really enjoy. It's discussions about business. It's talking about numbers and growth, and more importantly, ideas. And I think that show has really kind of captivated its successes, captivated a big segment of the population who loves ideas, growth, mindset, and things of that nature in the context of business. And in my idolatry of the TV show, I've also become like very big fan of many of the sharks on Shark Tank. One of whom is my favorite, undoubtedly, is Barbara Corcoran.
My favorite's Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful.
Yes.
I think that's your favorite because Mr. Wonderful.
We have the same Barbara.
You said it, not me. Barbara is one of my favorites because she went into the meat grinder of New York real estate as a woman and took on the male patriarchy and became a real estate behemoth of her own right. She's a real rags from riches story. And her story, if you really investigate it and learn about her and listen to the things that she espouses and what she's doing in business now, is really inspiring. And I just like her. She's very blunt. She's direct. She's kind. She's always got a soft touch, and she knows the things she's good at and the things she's bad at. And specifically, I caught an article in Inc.com that she gave 7 top tips for succeeding against all odds. And I was reading this other day, and I couldn't help but think that this is just great advice that she gave in this article. And so my topic for today was going to be to run through some of Barbara Corcoran's 7 top tips for success. First, get good with falling down. She recounts that in her family, there were 10 kids, and her mother didn't have time to help us, so they basically failed at everything. She was in a habit of falling on their heads and fixing problems, and confidence, she thinks, grew out of the fact that as a kid, she learned that every time she fell, she could get back up. How good of a lesson is that for business?
Oh, it's a great lesson, and that's one of my big things I always teach and tell people as well. You have to fail, but fail fast. Because when you make these mistakes, you're going to take something from them. And it's going to make you better, make you more optimized. I was discussing this with somebody the other day. I forgot who it was. But some of the, when you're looking at it from a business standpoint, some of the companies you want to do business with, they want experience. Companies have been around for a long time. But when you say experience, what you're really talking about is businesses who have made a lot of mistakes potentially in the past. They found ways to fix their procedures and their processes so those mistakes don't happen again. And they've optimized their systems. So that whole point of falling down is that's what's built into success, having those failures so you can get better from them and be more successful in the future from that. So that's a really great tip.
No question about it. And I think it takes time as an entrepreneur, somebody who's running a business, to really learn that lesson. Because initially, because of the financial stakes in any business, and look, business is hard. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It's not easy. It takes a daily commitment to success. And I think that, as I've learned over the last couple of years, I tell the team here all the time, I get excited. Like, there's one mistake we can't make, but everything else, I kind of get excited about it because it gives us a chance to evaluate what went wrong and fix the system and fix the process so that the company's even better, the clients even get even better experience, and so on. And we grow, we get stronger. So
small mistakes are great. You just got to fall forward.
Number 2, stay in the game. She mentions that she once blew an entire year of profit, $77,000, making videotape tours of her listings, and then nobody wanted to give them out. By luck, her husband, who was a Navy captain in South Korea, came and told her about this new thing called the internet. She posted, she immediately registered Corcoran.com, posted those listings. She had 2 sales that week. And the next thing she did is she went and she registered the domains for all of her competitors, which I loved.
That's a Barbara move.
That story, I love that story. Kind of dovetails with the first tip, I think. You know, get back up. You're going to fall, but staying in the game and making progress every day and learning from it. And sometimes, right, like in her situation, a failure can be turned into a positive.
Absolutely. And I mean, this goes hand in hand with, showing up every day is usually one of the hardest things for people to do. And just keep showing up, keep being consistent. That's where success comes from.
Absolutely. Number 3, seek what you don't have. She mentions here that her business partner was good at everything that she was terrible at initially. And so she suggests that you make a self-evaluation list of like, what are you good at and what are your weaknesses? And then find either a business partner or partners or hire people to complement the skills that you were bad at. This is a great tip. I mean, she talks about the fact that out of the hundreds of businesses that she's invested in, every successful one has a partnership of people who complement each other and or an operator who knows what they're not good at and hires people to complement that skill set.
You really have to know what your limitations are. And if you try to do everything, you're going to fail more than likely. And I think that's where people start scaling their businesses and finding more successes when you start letting go of things and getting people in who are really good at certain things to do things for you. If you try to do everything yourself, it's a pretty good recipe for disaster.
Yep. This next one I love. Number 4, don't be timid about taking somebody else's ideas and making them your own. I think sometimes we get so wound up in thinking that we have to do everything from scratch and come up with something ourselves. There is probably, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what business you're in, somebody who has solved that Rubik's Cube and or is doing something really neat that you can either copy or modify or a little bit to do it differently and be successful at it. I mean, she basically says she gets way too much undue credit for being an innovator, and she says it was all thievery. She literally got the idea for utilizing her face on billboards after faces on other billboards attracted her eye, and she realized that they were good marketing. She thought, I'm going to copy that, and I color code my listings, and boom. That worked and was a huge marketing success for her. And she literally says, I don't think I've ever had an original idea in my entire life, which is shocking coming from someone of her success level. But don't think that you have to come up with everything from scratch. Find people who are doing really smart things in whatever industry and either copy it if it's not trademarked or copyrighted, or modify it for your own purposes, right?
Yeah, you do not have to reinvent the wheel. There are blueprints pretty much for everything. And I think that actually ties in nicely with the first tip, too, about failure.
Yep.
Let somebody else make the mistakes. Let them learn from those mistakes. Let them find the best way to do things, then borrow from it and build upon it. That's how you can move faster.
That's a really great point on that. Number 5, value your intuition. This is another great tip. She says she does not listen to her head. Left brain logic gets in the way. In the earlier years of Shark Tank, she said she used her head all the time. She says now all she's really focusing on is sizing up individuals on the basis of my gut reaction. You know, I know you're gonna look at me with that smile because we talked about this all the time. Every bad decision I've ever made, it was the opposite of what my gut told me. And every good decision I've made, after I let the idea or the decision marinate for 2-3 days and really thought it through and trusted my gut, it ultimately always led me to the right decision. Isn't that right? I mean,
you hear me tell you this all the time. If your gut is saying one thing and your head is saying something else, go with your gut. That's 90% of the time going to be the right decision.
Yep. Number 6, this is a great one too. Serve your people. She believes being a phenomenal leader starts by loving people and helping them to be the best they can be. Really get that straight in your head. She says you work for them. The minute you start thinking that people work for you, you are not a good boss. And if you focus on building other people's success, they're going to reward you with loyalty and extra work and drag you up the ladder with them. What a great tip. You know, we hear this all the time. And, you know, for example, in great legal marketing, Ben Glass is a big espouser of what it means to be a phenomenal leader. And it really is, from my perspective, loving the team, making sure that you give them constant, we were talking about this morning, daily acknowledgement of the things that you can here and there to different team members of the things that they've done well, tell them what they did well, and try to build a culture and an environment that they can thrive in and feel like they're protected and they can succeed.
Yeah, as an owner of a business or a business, operator, your job is really to be a coach. You got to take these people. Your success is only going to be as good as how strong your team is. So if you have a team of people that you don't coach well, you don't help build them up, help them improve on their weak spots, but also compliment them on their positive things that they're doing daily, you're going to have a team that's going to flounder, unfortunately. So I think it's a very important mindset to have that you work for your people don't work for you.
I think it's also a misconception too. As a boss or as a leader of a team in any business, I don't like using boss employee. I mean, I really am a big believer in team. It's like, love your employees, right? I mean, it sounds cliche and silly, and there is a line that you have to draw professionally between like the personal and the work. But if you lead with that, if you lead with loving and wanting what's best for them, if they have the skills and they have the potential and they see that, you can get endless things out of them. And some people may take longer than others, but you have to have that in your mind. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Yes, absolutely. Completely agree.
Last one, get out of your own way. Number 7, get out of your own way. Her perspective is that you are your biggest enemy in business, not your competitor. The negative tapes you have in your head from something else that you did, some mistake you made, some insecurity, that is all holding you back. She says she believes it took her about 20 years to get past this element, that she was stuck with negative tapes in her head of different things that were negative that held her back from doing certain things, and that ultimately, from her perspective, people get held back by themselves. Couldn't agree with this more. I mean, I struggle with this because in business, right, we're all making decisions. A lot of them are significant financial decisions and risk. And immediately, if you are a conservative type of person or somebody who likes to really think things through because you're type A and you're trying to organize things, your head will flip to like, what if this goes wrong? What if this falls? Yeah, that's just the human condition that we immediately go there. But the bigger thing I've been trying to work on with my thinking in that regard is, what if I don't do this and this goes well, right? Is like, believe in yourself. You have every reason to believe in yourself because you know the commitment that you have for your business and the things that you're doing and what you can do. And once you believe in yourself and know that it's going to go right, it usually will.
Yeah, it's been my experience too. And most people have some form of self-limiting beliefs that they carry around with them. And the first step of that is really identifying those things and realizing those thoughts are going to your head. We all have a voice in our head, wherever it comes from. But one of the things I always tell people is if you're always looking in the rearview mirror and not looking out the front windshield, you're going to crash your car. You have to stop looking behind you, start looking ahead for things, and really getting into those self-limiting beliefs and figuring out where they stem from, dealing with them, hitting them head on, and getting them out of your way. You will move so much faster once you're able to do that.
I love those one-liners, and I actually just told somebody on the phone about 30 minutes ago I love to use, you know what happens if you give a mouse a cookie?
They're going to want a glass of milk.
All right. And so you just did a variation on one of my favorites, and it's, why they make the rearview mirror much smaller than the windshield, don't you?
Why is that?
We got to look ahead.
You got to look ahead.
So those are Barbara Corcoran's 7 top tips for success. Once again, phenomenal business leader, phenomenal investor. She's invested in some key, like really interesting and unique brands in Shark Tank that have become big companies. And I'm a huge fan of hers. She's a good speaker. She's got a lot of great tips like this, and so I saw this one, it popped out and was like a great topic. All right, the question from Ms. Brenda is, what conspiracy theory do you believe is true with 100%, no doubt? Brad?
I got to think for a second. What do you have?
Oh, come on. Ms. Brenda's thinking that you were fast on your feet.
Well, we're going to talk about it in a little while, but the aliens are real.
Yeah. Is that really a conspiracy theory?
Well, half the people don't believe it, so.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the conspiracy is the government's covering it up.
Okay.
Fair. I believe that Roswell, there's been a UFO crash, we've gotten something, and there's a major cover-up for it.
Interesting. Okay, well, mine, I'm going to get even like all civil rights and ACLU on you. And mine is, I 100% believe the government is conspiring with social media and tech companies to listen to us through our smart devices.
Is that a conspiracy theory, though?
I mean, some people would say it's a conspiracy
I think we
theory.
proved that on the podcast before.
Look, all I'm going to say is if you went down the row and found 10 people who regularly use, for example, Instagram, and asked them how many experience they had where they were discussing a particular product or a service or something of that nature, and they don't type it in their phone, and magically a day later there's ads for that product popping up on their phone, the government is listening to us through these companies.
Constantly happens to me.
Violating all of our civil rights, but that, I guess that it maybe isn't a conspiracy.
Just to add on that, though, I saw an article the other day that even major retailers, I won't name any names, they use little Bluetooth technology now to put around certain places of their store. And if you stand too close to the big screen TV for a little too long, they pick up on your IP address or your ID on your phone, and you will start getting advertisements for that big screen TV you were eyeing.
Yeah.
They are collecting the data like crazy.
Oh, great. Just like they're protecting our data? Wrong.
No.
Just like they're not listening to you in your house through Alexa? Wrong.
They're listening to us right now.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Great question. Great question. I'm going to flip it over to you, Mrs. Scott. What do you have for us today? I cannot wait to see.
Let's talk about aliens today, David. Congress has been doing these hearings on these UFO issues. They are probing the question, do aliens exist? As a society, 57%, this is the stats that I pulled, 57% of the population believes that aliens do exist.
Duh.
18% of the population believes that we have been visited by aliens here on Earth. So I was doing a general poll around the office before we got on. I think the majority of our employees all believe in aliens. Some of them may be aliens, and the majority of them do think that we have been visited by aliens, either in the office or on the planet at some point. That may be commentary on some of our clients, but I'm not going to go there. But where do you stand, Mr. Vickner? Do you think there are aliens out there? And then the second question is, do you think they have visited us?
I was first quite nervous and got a little sweaty because I was thinking you were asking me to comment on whether or not any of our employees are aliens. That could have had negative consequences for the topic we just discussed about loving them, and then an interplay in my emotional feelings about whether you can love an alien or not. I, of course, believe there are aliens. How do you look at the galaxy and the size of our universe and not come to the conclusion that there must be some other type of intelligent life elsewhere? I think the only way you can come to that conclusion is if you're triggering some type of religious conflict of how do you equate and put those little puzzle pieces together in the same box? And that's a much deeper discussion, a spiritual one, right? But I do think they exist, and I do think they have visited us, and I base the visiting us off of the fact that I can go on something we just discussed called the internet.
Is this going to be a first-hand account, or this is...
I don't believe I've been visited by aliens.
Okay.
If that's the questions. No, I have not been abducted, but I can go on the internet and I can see these things that they call I don't know if they're the same as the TikTok, like the Chinese social media company who is stealing all of our information, but they call them talks or ticks. I don't know what they call them, like those little things that the United States Navy and Air Force pilots have encountered. And you watch that on the internet, which is all in the government's database, and you're like, this is not our technology. We do not. I mean, there's no way the government is this good at this stage in 2023.
Either way, either it's of Earth or not of Earth, but we probably should be building bunkers if you're going to believe those videos.
Well, I mean, I personally think if we're going to really go there, I mean, wouldn't it make sense that they may have bases on the Earth and they're underwater?
Potentially.
The ocean is so deep,
so unexplored, and these talks just all disappear in the water. All right. That sounds more like a coon ass who's been fishing and caught some really weird stuff in a net or a fishing line before.
I have definitely done that.
All right. To get to your point of how big it is out there, how terribly microscopic we are, just to kind of put things in perspective, I pulled some stuff real quick. So essentially we live in a solar system. Our sun, the planets, our solar system's in the Milky Way galaxy, and then the galaxy's inside the universe.
Not the candy.
Not the candy, obviously. But just to kind of give you some context of how small we are out there in our our solar system is in the Milky Way. The Milky Way itself, our galaxy, has tens of billions of solar systems within the Milky Way galaxy. Then you start talking about galaxies in the universe. There are estimated 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. So I saw another stat that there are like 10,000 stars for every grain of sand on Earth. The scale of this thing is phenomenal. You can't even wrap your head around it. Then you start adding in the idea that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, approximately 14 billion years old. The Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. We have been around for 300,000 years as humans.
Yep.
So our position in time, as far as the grand scheme of the timeline, the calendar, and the scale of the size of things, we basically do not exist. We are a speck in the timeline in the galaxy. So the government's looking into this. Rest assured we'll have an answer, obviously. So they're having these congressional hearings. I don't know if you've kept track of any of these things and been watching it.
I've seen some of it.
So a lot of this started with this guy, David Grusch, Grusch. He is a former member of the UAP Task Force. The UAP Task Force, UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Apparently this is the department of the government that kind of looks into these things. Well, he came out. He's considered a whistleblower. He has some pretty grand allegations as far as what's going on. He is saying there's this grand cover-up by the U.S. government that they have recovered alien spacecraft and there's non-human aliens they found on it. They're saying this is all being done without appropriate congressional oversight. And he's saying these are non-humans. Now, looking at this stuff and kind of listening to some of these hearings, there's a lot of what we would refer to as hearsay if we were in court. These are all secondhand accounts of many of these things. There's really no documentation, no evidence, no photos of any of this stuff. So it's really whether you're taking Mr. David at his word or not as far as what he said other people told him. The other 2 witnesses they had was Ryan Graves, who was a Navy pilot, as well as David Fravor, F-R-A-V-O-R. Essentially, these guys testified, and they had very compelling testimony and things they were talking about. David Fravor was the one who talked about the Tic Tac UFO, the thing that's the light in the sky that's kind of bouncing really quick. But basically what they said is, look, these are the things we saw. These are first-hand accounts of things that they witnessed, but none of this has ever been linked back to being from another planet or outside of our universe. Interestingly enough, I kind of started looking around at things as far as the number of sightings per year, the kind of things that are reported. We average between 5,000 and 8,000 sightings per year of people reporting things that they believe are UFOs. Now, many of these things are later discovered to be things that we know what they are, such as deflating balloons coming back down to Earth, or a lot of this stuff tends to be space debris that's re-entering our atmosphere. But nonetheless, there is a lot of sightings. Interestingly enough, during the congressional hearings, Mr. Matt Gaetz, the representative from Florida, he chimed in to say that he had actual first-hand evidence of seeing aliens or alien life form. Now, granted, he is from Florida. I've seen a lot of crazy things in Florida myself, so I'm not sure how much weight we give Representative Gaetz' testimony in all of this.
I was actually going to ask, has anybody conducted a test to find out if Matt Gaetz is in fact an alien himself? Because he's giving me strong alien vibes, I'm just going to be honest.
He's an interesting fellow. All right. So
that's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
So, this begs the question, one, if the government knew about something, would they tell us about it if it was true?
No.
And if we're not alone, what do we do about it? Is it time to start building the bunkers? Where do we go from here? I think humans have always been fascinated with things from space, whether you're thinking in terms of religion or, there's all kinds of unexplained things going on. But just because it's unexplained doesn't mean it's not of our world. But given the grand scheme of things, there has to be something out there. What do you think?
Well, we're talking about trusting your gut from Barbara Corcoran. There's definitely, from my perspective, other intelligent life out there. I do not trust the government, to be honest with us. In fact, I believe they've probably had, spacecraft for some time, dating all the way back to Roswell. That was a big thing. And then
1947, the alleged UFO crash in Roswell.
And if you notice, really because of the decentralization of media coverage due to the internet, podcasts like this, YouTube, things of that nature, I think it's been harder over the last couple of decades for the government to really control the narrative of anything. And so for many years, right, it was probably easier for them to control the narrative on something like this topic, which they were likely hiding from all of us. And now it's just kind of like the hen has gotten out of the hen house, and they're dumping this slowly and periodically to like let us all just marinate in it as we slowly realize that they've been knowing about aliens for a very long time. And my hope would be that they have, and my hope would also be that we've been utilizing what we find to better our technology and capabilities, and that in some capacity, hopefully we're communicating with them to try to work with them, because we don't want Independence Day. I mean, I don't think Will Smith is in fighting shape like he was on that movie anymore. So if we don't have Will Smith and Harry Connick Jr. in their late 20s anymore, I don't know.
Well, before we came onto the podcast, Kyle, who's behind the camera, I'll give a shout out to Kyle. He made an interesting point. He said, well, if the government does have evidence of there being UFOs and aliens they're trying to keep from us, probably the most rational thing they could do is tell us that aliens are real, because then we're not going to believe the government. So it's a good way to dispel our beliefs.
It's actually not too bad. In fact, before I walked in here, our intake coordinator, Paige, was researching the different species of aliens so that I could be prepared to discuss this topic if it came up. And there were apparently many different species that she's been researching.
I also read an article that they are breeding with humans as well. So explains some of the people we meet on a daily basis.
I mean, the scary side of it, for me at least, is that it's very likely, if there is other intelligent life out there that could get to our planet, into our we know our galaxy, right? That we know, at least in our solar system, that, or maybe I'm going to have a scientist correct me, I'm misusing the words. In our planetary system of our
Solar
8
system.
planets, we feel very confident in our solar system that there's
There was 9 planets when I was in school. They took one away.
Who did they take away again?
Pluto.
Poor Pluto. I always felt like
He's
Pluto
been relegated to the Disney Channel.
Pluto got a raw deal. I remember that. And now it's just a star.
I think it's a cold rock at this point is what they're considering it.
Kyle says it's what? What is it?
Dwarf planet.
It's a dwarf planet. Oh, what a fall from grace.
Wow.
A planet to a dwarf planet. Couldn't they call it something nice like a junior planet? And a dwarf?
Associate planet.
Associate planet. There we go. Anyways, I mean, I think we feel confident there's no intelligent life in our in our planetary system, but it's
Or our
not,
planet, for that matter.
But, I think if they can get to us, the scary side is their technology is likely far advanced to ours if they can reach us. And that's the thing that kind of scares me a bit, if I'm going to be honest, that if they can get to us, how much longer till the big ships can get here? And they're just sending the small
I'm going to
ones.
assume their AI technology is a little bit better than what we're at, too.
ChatGPT was like 7 billion gazillion years ago for them. We're just like stumbling upon ChatGPT.
I think they probably think of us, like I saw someone talking about this, they're like, how we walk around and we see ants on the ground and we don't pay them much mind because we don't consider them to be that intelligent. They're probably flying around the planet looking at us saying, those little idiot ants. Like, they just don't think much of us, more than likely.
Well, you scared me even more because it's pretty easy for you to just step on an ant. So,
well, it's coming. So I assume we need to open up a bunker somewhere to start housing supplies.
okay. Well, whenever you build the bunker out, please let me know. I have specific specifications for my room and things.
We'll start shooting the overworld podcast from the bunker.
And the nice
deep
thing
within the bunker.
The nice thing is the farther down you get, the cooler the temperature for housing wine.
That's not a bad idea, especially given our summer we're going through.
Yeah, red wine will last a long time.
Think
in
of
a
that.
bunker.
Storing wine, protection from the aliens, and hurricanes.
Yep. And no heat. No heat in New Orleans. So, fascinating topic. It's definitely interesting to watch. There's all the congressional testimony on it and the things that the government's voluntarily releasing now. And I'm sure there is much, much more to come.
Apparently there's going to be some subpoenas that are going to be rolling out, too, to get documents and photos, and we'll see what happens.
And next, I want it to be released who killed JFK. If they're going to tell us that the aliens exist, we deserve to know who shot President
You got
Kennedy.
to keep up. JFK shot first.
Oh.
That's the new conspiracy theory.
I think that was too soon. It might be 60 years later, but still too soon.
All right, guys.
Fascinating topic, Brad. I thought it was a great show discussing Corcoran's tips for success, alien life taking over the planet. In many ways, I don't know how bad that would be because there's so many idiots on this planet that maybe the aliens will get here and decide we're out and leave. But it was a great show. Good to talk to you about all these things today. Thank you to all our visitors for being here and listening. Once again, this has been the Overruled Podcast with Scott Vicknair, brought to you by the Scott Vicknair Law Firm. So on behalf of my co-hosts, Brad Scott and Dave Vicknair, thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Take care.
Scott Vicknair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.